Vartika Shukla, who will be the first presenter. She'll be having a topic of Refinery of the Future, a sneak peek. So Srimati Vartika Shukla graduated in chemical engineering from IIT Kanpur in '88. She joined process division of EIL and rose to head the division. She has more than 28 years of extensive experience in oil and gas sector and also vast consulting experience comprising process design of the refinery, gas processing and petrochemicals. She has presented and published technical and industry papers related to topical and future interests to the oil and gas sector and holds 6 patents to her credit. She is the first recipient of the Petroped Women Executive of the Year in the oil and gas industry in 2006-07 and the Scope Award for Outstanding Women Manager in PSCs for 2013-14. Presently, Srimati Vartika Shukla is an Executive Director Technical with EIL, leading the R&D Center and Energy Studies. So we have 15 minutes and then a bell and 5 more minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, directors, MDs of companies, senior delegates from India and abroad, and everybody pertinent and looking forward to the growth of the refining industry. I know this is a post-lunch session, and like the pre-lunch session, this also poses challenges. But let me see if we get enough food for thought in the next 15-20 minutes. I would like, firstly, to thank CHT for providing EIL this opportunity. And on behalf of EIL, I'm very grateful for that. So let's see, the refinery of the future. How would it look like? Today, the refining industry is among the 8 core sectors of growth for the Indian economy. A robust, thriving, energetic industry. And see the picture of a crystal ball. Is it that the refining industry today in India and abroad is a result of a crystal ball? Gazing? Let's see. Taking us a little back on the genesis of the petroleum refining industry. It began by the discovery of oil perchance, the first drilling of a modern well in 1859, followed by the crisis of World War II, a slump down in the Great Depression, and again a jump up in World War II. Now the industry in those years grew to meet the military needs of the nations where oil assets were the target of conflict. And the growth of platforming, first the growth of the introduction of TEL, growth of platforming, catalytic cracking, is all a result of those changes, those crisis years, followed by market domination. And in the early 2000s till now, we have been fighting for lack of natural resources. So every orientation of our refining industries towards processing heavier crude, high sulfur crude, maximizing distillates, any and everything that we can get to increase the transportation fuel volumes. From here, where do we see tomorrow? Looking forward, there are 2 factors which would be dominant into the configurations and the looking forward aspect of the refining industry, driven by the environmental concerns of GHG emissions. All operations and technologies will be focused towards that. Refining industry needs to be immensely competitive with technology, operational excellence, and product choice. So in retrospect, perhaps it was not the crystal ball gazing which led to the growth of the industry. They were driven, the growth and the nature of changes were driven by geopolitical situations, the driver of economic growth, and industry as a pattern, and how the product needs changed over a period of time. So I will touch upon 8 key areas which are pertinent to address in the times of today, and how we dovetail these into the refineries of tomorrow. The first and foremost is sustainable mobility. Sustainable mobility and sustainable means of transport is the foremost concern in the future. Let me give you a couple of statistics. India has about 13 cars per 1,000 people and are expected to treble by the year 2025. In comparison, Japan has a number of over 600 and US about 439. So way below the average of the world at large, similar to what the petrochemical industry did. India today is the 4th largest emitter of GHG emissions, the transport sector being a contributor to the tune of 13% to the CO2-related emissions. 2 key things. One is the majority of the gasoline goes to the two-wheeler market, two-wheeler segment, and about 46% of the diesel goes to commercial vehicles. We know that today the automotive industry has introduced hybrid vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and electric vehicles. And last year, 15-16 sold about 22,000 vehicles in the nation, and the target is about 6 million by the year of 2020. And the enablers, as we can see, are on national level, on city level, growth of infrastructure, and financial mechanism to enable the development of the technology to actually penetrate into the market of EVs. Now then, how does this penetration go into the changing of the energy mix? There is a study which is carried out by UNEP and IIM Ahmedabad, which shows that if we were to grow at 8% in the times to come, the growth of total energy demand would be about 2.8 times that of 2015. And the second important point is that the changing mix of the transportation sector. So if you see the graph on the extreme right side of the slide, in 2035, we have a significant volume of biofuels, electricity, and gas into the segment of transportation. Further to this, if we were to work out a scenario where there would be more impetus to the growth of EV, and there could be, subsequent to that, a scenario where we, over the CO2 reduction target of limiting the global temperature rise to 2 degrees would be imperative to follow in the industry, imperative for the nation to adopt. We would find a sizable reduction into the requirement to the transportation sector, which would be evident only after 2025. And if we see the numbers, they're on the screens. The number is about 23 million ton of reduction in a scenario where it is slightly more policy-oriented than today, and a reduction of about 40 million tons of crude oil equivalent if we actually have a stabilization target of 2 degrees adopted to the nation. However, the main point to note is that the industry, the refining industry, would continue to meet the demand of the transportation sector through the fossil fuel route. The second area, refinery and petrochemicals. Refinery and petrochemicals largely world over are co-located. Over 90% of the petrochemical capacity is co-located with the refineries. The typical growth rate for the refining industry is 1.5 times the GDP. And so that spells out a lot of investment and a lot of looking into options by integrating petrochemicals to refineries. Another point I would like to make at this juncture is we are always looking at commodity polymers, and we seldom see and address the need for petrochemical intermediates. Today, India is dependent about 45% in petrochemical intermediates to meet the domestic demand. It is a vital link like ethylene oxide, propylene oxide, polyols. These are streams which are needing to be added in capacity in the domestic industry. Second, another factor is that the intermediate industry actually generates a lot more employment than the commodity polymers, and also has a high value one, creating more value for integration with the refinery. If we see the growth, this is again based on some data which is worked out in consultation with SRI. The growth of product volumes is about 2.8 times by 2050 as compared to 2010. Now I'll give 4 salient points to look at refineries today and tomorrow, what to do and what can be done to make them better integrated. First, the configurations and the streams routing for the refinery must be more well thought out, such that the product maximization of petrochemicals, niche petrochemicals, intermediates is also addressed along with the commodity polymers. And select technologies which have a petrochemical orientation. Maximize the olefin-rich streams generation and dedicate them to petrochemicals. Do not mix the streams which can go and add petrochemical capacities into transportation fuel. And the third point, which was also touched upon in the morning, would be that is it a situation in the future that transportation fuels is a consequence of the refining industry? Today, the refining industry runs on, primarily looks for fuel maximization, that is gasoline and diesel. Tomorrow, we may need to reorient the refinery, put in the hydrodesulfurization for the naphtha, kero, diesel, and eventually end it up as a cracker feedstock for making more olefins. And the fourth point is that we think it would be overcome by then is to strategize technology options. Today, the strategy is being worked out. There are a lot of technologies in petrochemicals which are very guarded and restricted. And synergy comes if you trade volumes with your partner in the technology arena. So these are 4 points majorly to be looked at in our view for better integration. The next is biorefining. Now, new pathways in biorefining are important to take the world towards carbon neutrality. We know the mandate is there for 20% blending in 2017. And that target needs to be met by resources within the country itself. Now, we will touch upon essentially bioethanol, and subsequent to I'm going to go further to bioethanol because we are looking really far ahead. I'm not touching upon biodiesel because that has its own reasons and limitations. So 3 broad routes. One is the enzymatic route. The second is the thermochemical route, which is the gasification route. Here I would say when you're gasifying, why go to a 2-carbon ethanol economy? Go to methanol, which is a single carbon. And the third is looking at catalytic hydropyrolysis to remove the oxygen and make the stable oils. So beyond ethanol, where do we go? Beyond ethanol, as we have seen, petrochemicals is the area which is of focus, both by studies carried out internationally, as well as the need for our own nation itself in terms of requirement of each sector. So bioethanol, today's need is that, but looking forward, it would go to ethanol derivatives. It will go and fill the value chain, which is traditionally filled by the hydrocarbon sector. Now, if we see in the country, the studies show that we have about 150 million tons of excess biomass. And typically, if we need 1 million ton of bioethanol, considering the technology status today, we need about 8 tons of biomass. And let's say these technologies improve over the period of time that we're talking about, maybe it would end at about 4 to 5 million tons of biomass per ton of ethanol. And we can work out the maths as to the growth rate of gasoline and the requirement for blending thereof. The next area is in a sunny country like ours, we really cannot ignore the power of the sun. In the morning, there was a mention of using hot oil in the preheat train. So here I bring to you a case study which is very familiar to all of us, looking at integrating of solar with the CDU preheat train. We had an opportunity to study this process integration for ONGC Energy Center, and the findings here are courtesy to the efforts that were put in by our team to do that integration. What we've done is we have integrated the hot end of the crude preheat train, typically of a 15 million ton capacity, which has a duty of about 375 to 400 million, and about 5% duty we have attributed to the solar heater. And the fluids, if you see the blue exchanger here at the hot end of the preheat train. These thermic fluids at 400 degrees are well commercially available, but Dow Therm, even Indian Oil, has their own thermic fluid indigenously manufactured. However, the challenge here is a payback. The payback for the CSP gives a payback more than 10 years today. But I'm sure this concern is going to be addressed in the times to come. There would be technology breakthrough for CSP. And the second challenge is space. So today we need about, per megawatt of CSP, we need about 1.6 acres of land, which is a huge land. But looking forward, this would be an area which would bring renewable, which will reduce the fire duty in the fire heater and bring benefit in the overall energy guzzler of the crude vacuum unit. Now we've gone one step further. Oops, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll try to complete it, okay. We've gone a step further, wherein we joined the solar with the ORC. And we found that the temperature levels of about 109 degrees, which we worked upon, are not suitable. But if we co-merge the solar with the ORC and raise the temperature of the streams to ORC to about 150 degrees, we end up generating about 2 megawatt of power. So these integrations can be worked out on case-to-case basis, but it becomes very pertinent and very relevant to tomorrow. Okay. Polygeneration from gasification is now on a back burner, essentially because of the prices that are governing the decision making. But then I have 3 points. I will skip this slide. And another thing to watch is a one-step catalytic hydromethanation. Somebody raised a point on naphtha. Why don't we look at coal and do a one-step hydromethanation to SNG directly? Now, 3 factors here again: the reliability of gasification, which can be coped with investments. Looking at availability of natural gas. If there is no available natural gas, would it be better to bring energy security by making SNG and integrating the refinery network with it? And third is looking at the environmental stipulations. Catalyst and processes. Now, research in catalysts is essentially today oriented towards fundamentals, and I'll have to do it faster, I guess. So there are 3 key things wherein we are looking at areas of nanostructured catalysts, predictive catalysis, where you're observing what happens and then reformulate your catalyst. Look into the area of CO2 capture, liquid fuels, and photocatalysis. Certain areas which are going to be key, essentially focused towards maximization of olefins, whether we are looking at low alkane oxidative dehydrogenation, methanol to olefins, where the yield can be improved today, currently at 38%, should go up to give value to the process itself, and alternative methods of fuel. In the bioethanol, I would like to just mention that there is a lignin component which can be, if developed, the technology developed, can also be valorized into aromatics or other petrochemicals. And hydrogen generation is, of course, the area of interest to everybody, wherein photocatalytic water splitting, artificial photosynthesis would be the area of attention. Advanced materials, very quickly. One thing is, just one single point here, the advanced materials, basically, if we see nanomembrane applications, that could solve the water crisis of tomorrow. Today, we are fighting for energy, for crude. Tomorrow, we will fight for water. And this is one area which would give a solution to the water crisis. This is for the lovers of the engineering graduates who love doing automation and simulation work, looking at Internet of Things. And there could be some diagnostic tools, etc., which can be. Okay. So in summary, I would say that today we are here with refinery and petrochemical. We grow in refinery, but grow in petrochemical in larger volume, add coal utilization, biorefining, sustainable mobility, renewables, hydrogen, and the Internet of Things. So today, all of us are really not going to look into the crystal ball. Survival of all stakeholders is very important in this, what everybody calls as a VUCA world. So we need to address each of the issues, whether it is volatility, and the business as usual is not going to give you results. So at the end, I thank you for your attention, and we as EIL have always been in the forefront, joining hands with the industry to help them strategize and bring their options into light and see the success of each project. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vartika. You're the chairman's delight. You just finished in 20 minutes. So the next speaker and the next